Good evening and welcome. I am Irene Buck here to lead us through an evening of excitement. We're waiting for the tally results. The polls have just closed in Westport, and the town clerk is working to bring all the totals together, and we'll have them for you as soon as possible. But from what we've been told, there was a really good turnout today, so it may take a while. So I'm here with Shauna Schufeld, and we're going to be talking about Westport. We're going to be talking about things that are happening, things you might want to know about, questions we have. And we're here courtesy of Westport Community TV. You know, this is a tiny staffed two-person operation in our town that covers almost every meeting. It takes the time to cover parades that happen in the morning and events that happen at night. Valerie Bain, who is the public access coordinator, is here watching us tonight. John Resendez works out at the high school with students, encouraging them to pay attention and think about film and what goes on behind the scenes. So thanks to both Valerie and John. I have here, and Val, you might want to take a look at it, the websites. There's a community TV website, if you can see that. If you're looking for information, check these out on the Westport website. Just click up at the top for the department, and you will find Westport Community Television information. If you go to boards and committees on the town website, you can get information on the cable advisory and where to find information. Tonight on 190, this is being recorded. It'll also be available on YouTube. So, hello, welcome.
Hi,
Excitement.
good evening, Irene. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm happy you're here too.
I just want to underscore what you said about Jim Coyne. I have spent many a night in the last 9 years sitting with Jim, and I really miss him. I miss his family. I think he's got a good legacy, the we in Westport.
I think so too, and thank you for adding that, because you know, you never quite know when someone starts a project that it really means a lot to people, because you know, they're not all sitting in the room with us, but having access through our local community TV makes a big difference. And we just need to underscore the we in Westport, I think, a little bit more, especially after an election campaign when everybody's running after winning. But people have paid attention. They've come out to vote. Yeah. So it should be very interesting. They're voting both on the choice for two select board seats, a school committee, two school committee seats, and then the big question that was put up for everybody. Would you like to talk about the effort that went into getting that question on the ballot? How many years were they working on this?
So the question on the ballot is debt exclusion. So that would allow us to increase the property taxes over the 2.5% in order to pay for this water and sewer project. And I know a lot of people think that this came on really quickly. That like all of a sudden we have a $35
I just heard about
project.
it.
Exactly. But we have been, I'm not even going to do justice to the number of studies and commissions and committees and decades that we have been evaluating. In the last two master plan projects, they suggested water and sewer along Route 6. The Target Integrated Water Resource Management Plan called for it. I was talking to Jim Whiten the other day, he was on the planning board. He found a town meeting vote in 2006, where in 2006 town meeting vote said, yes, we should pursue water and sewer on Route 6. And so it's been at least 20 years of work trying to get to, you know, how do we do this? How do we do water and sewer? And we had a lot of people slogging away at it really hard for a long time. And a lot of the ARPA money, the ARPA is American Rescue Plan Act money.
Yeah, we can have time tonight to really spell that out. Sometimes you hear acronyms and you don't know what people are saying. Those are real organizations.
Yeah, so the ARPA money gave us money to do the design engineering. So we actually have a shovel-ready project now. And so the reason it seems really sudden, and the reason it really seems like, oh, it was $8 million, now it's $30 million, It's because we invested in the design engineering. We have a shovel-ready project. They divided it in 3 sections, and so when you heard $8 million, that was the first. I don't know how long it was, but the first chunk, like mile and a half,
Connection
something
from
like that.
Fall River.
Yeah, that was there's phase 1 was estimated about $8 million at the time, and then there's phase 2, and then phase 3 gets it all the way to Dartmouth, and so. The 35 million is for all 3 phases. So anybody who talked about the $8 million, that was just the first phase. And so I know there's a lot of people who have some real concerns, and I think we're going to talk about some of the warrant articles.
Yes, I think that's real important.
But it didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of more than 20 years of people looking at what do we do, how do we do this, what's the right thing to do. It's just we had money to do the design engineering. We're shovel ready now. And it's, there's people are concerned.
Westport is dependent upon really embedded volunteers that are willing to stay more than a week or a month or a year to work on projects. You're talking about people that have been working for 10 years. But the reason that it's not heard about from me or maybe one of my neighbors is I'm not on that committee. I don't really know if that's something I'm interested in. But then there are little whispers that there's money involved, and when money's involved, people seem to perk up their ears.
Well, sure, they should.
So if you heard 8 million, maybe that's a great time to start talking to the volunteers. This town is so dependent upon volunteers that are willing to do the hard work and to speak up.
Yeah.
But maybe that's the time to start talking to some of these your fellow residents of this community and say, why did this change? Why did I hear one thing or another?
I think one thing that I've seen in the last few weeks is there has been a lot of people asking a lot of questions. Now, I would prefer questions be like, hey, share more information, rather than like, you people are hiding stuff from us kind of questions.
Yeah.
But I think it's good that people are talking about it.
Absolutely.
But what I do get really frustrated with people saying we're hiding things when we've tried so hard to get the word out. Like the select board has been talking about this for a long time. We had the infrastructure oversight committee has been about 2 years ago that was formed. And like I said, the master plans that they have done over the years, they had community surveys. They went out and had listening sessions where they invited people to come to the library. So for the people who say that we're not communicating, I would please tell me how to communicate.
That's one of the reasons we're talking tonight, because I'd like to know how people get the news. Being involved with cable, I understand how much work goes into covering all the meetings, everything that's happening in town. And it's relatively simple to turn on channel 190 if you have cable, to go to YouTube and to see the activity, to see the engagement. And some of those meetings are entertaining, not all of them.
It's hard to pick the entertaining ones from the little thumbnail image. We like you said before, we have like 2 people in the department, so we don't have, I don't want to say this in a disparaging way, but we don't have really edited, nicely
Absolutely.
Cropped and trimmed and tagged.
No. And it's
because
done
you just don't have the resources to
right
do it.
away. People want to hear about it the next day. No, I think we're very lucky to at least have access, but in a small town like this, often people's expectations are way beyond a small town. They kind of live here because it's rural, because there's no sidewalks, or because there's lots of grass and lots of cows. But the ability to be able to provide this professional support you're talking about, everything right at the minute. I'd like to know how people get their news. I'm like you, look at social media and I see criticism. I don't see people saying, give me enough that I can begin to make decisions. I see people criticizing you because they don't know who you are, your name. They haven't taken the time to look. And again, if you go back to the town website, every board and department and committee has a list of its members listed on the website. You can go, most people have some knowledge about how to use a website. It's all there.
I would really encourage people again, I'm welcome anybody who has any questions about how do we, anybody who has any ideas, but some of the ways that people get, first of all, I think I think if you have the means, you should subscribe to the Shorelines.
Absolutely,
Because
I agree.
a democracy depends on a free press, and if we don't pay a reporter to do independent reporting, you just can't get it. And the way that you pay your reporter to do the independent reporting is through subscription to the Shorelines.
And you can do a digital
You can
subscription.
do. I have a digital. Well, I actually have paper.
I like paper. I
Yeah,
get paper
I like
too.
paper. But the second thing you can do is the cable committee now has a YouTube channel. So these meetings are live on YouTube now,
Right.
which is really exciting for people who are using streaming service. I know you're on the cable advisory committee, but there's people cutting the cable.
Yeah.
On the town website, they post all the meetings with the agendas and so I really encourage people to take a look at what's on the agenda. And I think some people don't understand that when you have a posted agenda, you're not allowed to talk about stuff that isn't on the agenda. So take a look at what's on the agenda, because that's what the boards are going to be talking about. There's also, you can sign up for alerts on the website, so that when somebody posts an agenda or posts something, that you can get an email alert. So, and then obviously the town website itself. So we're trying to get the word out.
Yes.
But some of our departments, I think the Westport Recreation Department has an amazing Facebook page.
Yeah,
They do
yeah.
a really good job of promoting their programming on Recreation Department. The Veteran Service Officer has a really great Facebook page. I think those are the fire department and the police department. They're not quite as active, but they also have a Facebook page. So we're trying to get you where you are.
Yeah, well, I think that, again, it's a need for more volunteers. A lot of those jobs can be done by people that know very well how to use a website, how to create a website. If you want, but we have to agree as a community that there's news to be gathered and news to be shared. Go back a little bit to this question one. You said 20 years ago people were, what was obvious that the need was there? Was it septic systems that were falling apart, or was it, because nowadays we know that the state is very concerned about the nitrogen in the river. There's been a lot of concern about that. Building the new school, that was a big concern. But a long time ago, when this started to become an obvious, was it about creating a better profile for Route 6 so that the business community could grow? Was it sewer
I
problems?
think it's the same things that we're talking about now. Like for the people who have water now, there was an environmental hazard. Their water was not potable, and I wasn't around at the time,
Right,
at the
neither.
time, but they ran water specifically because there was an environmental hazard that had happened. So there are like 160, I think, subscribers to water right now because of that. It was an environmental concern. We still have homes that have cesspools up there, and the cesspools don't do any kind of cleaning of any of it. Those lots are small and close together, and so your well and your septic are pretty darn close together in some of those lots.
So it's a reality of moving into the 21st century.
Well, so there's the and the homeowners that I've talked to are mixed. A lot of homeowners are really concerned about the cost that they're going to have to bear, and I don't blame them for being concerned about that. But other homeowners who maybe have had to or are going to have to build a brand new septic system, they kind of look at the cost a little bit differently. So I'm really getting mixed reaction there. So there's the homes that are there, and how do you service them? I think that most of these master plans and the different studies that have come out have really emphasized that's the place where we have the opportunity for economic development. We have state Route 6 is a state road. We have an on-ramp to a freeway right there, and a lot of commercial businesses already there.
Exactly.
And so I think that when you look at I have supported overrides and debt exclusions, and I know I get like kind of criticized for that, but I've been working on the budget a long time. The biggest criticism I get, but some people say we need to cut to cut the budget, and you say, fine, please show me which department
Right.
to cut, and they don't usually say very much. But the other thing is, what are we doing to promote growth? How are we trying
Yeah.
to get more tax revenue? And if you don't want your property tax to go up, we have to get some commercial tax
Right,
revenue
right.
in here. And that's really, along Route 6 and along 177 are really your opportunities for the big commercial development.
Well,
I mean,
it-
obviously we have Main Road, but, so I think, I don't know that environment was as big of 20 years ago. People knew it was like a safety thing and an economic development thing. I think now we're a little more concerned about nitrogen and other contaminants coming into the wells. So I think it's the same problems for 20 years ago. People didn't want their taxes to go up.
Yeah.
And we've had times where other communities built water treatment plants. They got a lot of money from other sources for
We
that.
have a choice to vote whether we want to increase our taxes. If we go to the grocery store, we don't always have a choice because we do need bread and milk and stuff.
Yeah.
And so where you can begin to make a choice, you have to understand what you're choosing. You're choosing for today or you're choosing for the next 10 years. I'm in that senior category that, 10 years from now, I don't have to worry about it, but you're going to worry about it 10 years from now. You're going to be concerned about the
I
quality
hear
of
a
the
lot
sound.
about, we should have done this in 2018. We should have done this in 2006. Like, yes, but we didn't, and we can't go backwards, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
that's
we'll
the real
see.
conversation. Part of the community is thinking about what's happening today for very real reasons, or that's how they look at things, or they're saying, I can't think about anything other than today. And some of the community is saying, wait a minute, this is an old town that wants to stay here. It wants to stay healthy. It wants to provide for its citizens. But in that, there's also the changes, they call it gentrification. What does that mean to people? Because they have a sense of what Westport should be. It should have lots of open space. It should have farm animals. It should have not a lot of cars on the road all the time. How do we begin to talk about how those changes will have to occur at some point? We have wonderful organizations in this community that are working really hard to purchase open space.
we do, yeah.
Do you think there's enough conversation about the benefits that the Land Trust provides people in maintaining open space? Because we're talking about a section of town that doesn't have a lot of open space. We're talking about Route 6 that has small lots. People have lived there a long time, probably multiple generations, and they want to keep it a certain way.
Yes, they do. People, and I think, so you talked about the Land Conservation Trust, but I think if you look at the really big non-governmental agencies that we have around, we have the Land Conservation Trust, we have the Westport River Watershed Alliance, the Buzzards Bay Coalition, all of them work for community preservation,
Right.
For
They keep
environmental
Westport
grants and things
looking.
like that. I think they're doing that. They really try to find opportunities up further north. When Walt's Farm, when they purchased that, they're trying to find more opportunities up north, but there's not enough open space farmland to protect up there, but they're looking for opportunities like that. So we're really fortunate to have a lot of, and then we have the volunteers that are on our government appointment committees doing a lot of work
To keep the character of the town.
but some of it is hard because you want to keep the character of the town, but also we're not horse and buggies anymore.
That's
And
That's right.
so some things have to change, and some things that we thought were fine, like we used to think smoking was fine. People probably in this room were smoking, having meetings, and we don't do that anymore, right?
Yeah.
So
And we don't do it for a very important reason. We want to stay healthy. We don't want to deal with some. The health of people who would benefit from water and sewer that was cleaner than it possibly is right now is not part of the conversation a lot. I mean, it's sort of we're going to change the way the water is disposed of or the waste is disposed of. We're going to change the way you get water, but we're not saying, and you're going to be healthier.
I think people are skeptical about
Okay.
that, right? So I think there's a certain number of people who don't want to do projects like these because of the money, right?
Yeah.
So even if and that's very real. People
Sure.
on fixed incomes, and some of those homes tend to be people on fixed incomes
Absolutely.
or with more limited income than other areas of town. And so the cost impact is very real for them. And, we have to be looking
Well,
out for
it'll
that.
be real for the whole town, because
But-
everybody will help to pay for this.
Yeah, right. But also the health concerns, it's so hard to get good information about the water quality.
Okay.
Because the Board of Health has where the known places that have tested, but there are people who don't test, right? And they're not required to test. And so we don't really know what the water
Right.
quality is. And then there are people who will complain about the water quality of the Fall River municipal water too. And I don't know how real that is, but it's a concern,
But
right?
that's why I think there was a need to have community conversations around issues like that, because people talk to each other, they share information, and right now, the information that has been shared most recently is vote for or don't support a decision that will cost you money, not how do you know whether your water is quality water? How do you know whether you're going to have to use something that, change your whole septic system or whatever, the big frightening. Welcome. We have a guest here tonight that's going to join our conversation. Or come on up and
You
say
ready to
hi.
live-
Yeah, Steve, will that,
You gotta
decline your
talk.
kind
You
invitation
gotta talk about.
because you have to work tonight?
We are doing a countdown, and we are remembering that Jim Coyne had started this a number of years ago to do the countdown. Last year, Sean and I were here talking, and we're talking about tonight is, first of all, and we haven't really gotten past that, what people were voting on and the challenges.
So
Put
this
yourself
is,
in
this
so
is
you can
Maury
talk.
May. So
Yeah.
Maury is been on a number of committees, but I think today your Economic Development Task Force and the
I am.
Infrastructure Oversight Committee.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to do the votes are in. We're gonna see what the results are. But we've been talking a little bit about the conversation. Did you want to talk about the articles coming
Yeah,
up
I
in the
think
warrant?
that
are
was, I was
related?
just going to say, we know that people have gone to the polls. We know the polls have closed, but apparently there was a really good turnout, so it'll take a little time to count the vote. So we're talking about Westport and what's going on in Westport, and we talked a little bit about reasons for and against the vote, but we want to move forward into May, and Sean is going to share with us the town warrant.
Yeah,
right?
so I thought what we could do is talk about the warrant articles. There's a number of them that are related to efforts you're involved in, so we'll have you chime
Oh,
in.
there are three.
There's several. So let's just go down the articles. Some of them you'll hear more about than others, but. So Article 1 was removed. Article 1 is usually paying 2 years ago bills. So apparently we are all paid up on our 2 years ago bills. So Article 1 was being removed. Article 2 is transferring money from one to the other. I think it's important for town meeting to know that when we go through the budget and we put personnel and expenses by line item, only town meeting can shift those around. So Article 2, what happens is some are underspending, some are overspending, and you're trying to shift the money around. So the school department has like a big bucket of money, and they have a lot more flexibility within that budget. But the town departments, you can't just switch from police expenses to a police personnel without a town meeting vote. So town meeting really is
So
moving the money
You're
around.
saying that
So-
very much at the beginning of the town meeting, we're making decisions.
Right, and
The
these
warrant, we're specifically how money's going to be spent for the coming year.
Exactly. That's like one of the most important functions of town meeting is setting the budgets and setting the money and controlling the money. Town meeting controls the money. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that it has to be in a line item at town meeting in order to be spent on anything.
And if you've grown up in a town that has town meetings, because not everyone who lives here, I grew up in Chicago, and let me tell you, you were long ways from how
The
decisions
select board
were
can't
made.
write a check, and the
Yeah.
select board can't write checks for anything that has not been approved at town meeting. It has to be in those very target, the only area we're allowed to deficit spend is for snow and ice. And that's because you might have storm coverage that you have to come. So Article 2 is just moving stuff around, and so this is just, moving things around, from one line item to the other. So there's no additional taxation or anything, this is moving budget money around. Article 3 sets the salary of the elected town officials who are compensated. So right now we have the moderator, the select board, the assessors, the board of health, and the town clerk. So the town clerk is really the only full-time elected employee that we have left. And those are typically 2% raises beyond, they're usually aligned with the union. So if the town hall union employees get 2%, that would be what these people got. I know in the past, we have tried to remove stipends from the select board and the moderator. And even when the select board and the moderator say, please don't remove our stipends, people still want them, right? So
But could those amounts be changed if someone
they absolutely can. One of the things that I think is super cool about town meetings is that anybody on the floor can stand up and say, I move that we change this piece of the article to say that. And we can discuss it and change it. I don't recommend it on a lot of stuff because it's going to make for a very long town meeting, but anybody can make changes. And we'll talk about it. You can make a change.
I'd like to welcome Carrie Cunha. Hello. Hi, how are you? How's everybody?
Carrie's been super.
Right, we didn't give you much time to introduce yourself, but that's because everybody
shy.
knows you.
We're gonna get to this topic
We're talking to all of Westport. Every single person is waiting anxiously for the results. And so if you want to say anything more about your involvement, and we're hoping to share information and get people involved in what the community's doing. That's what we're moving to May. Carrie, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? You're a Westport resident.
I am.
What else do you want the world to know?
Nothing.
So,
I love Westport.
so you gave more of the floor. So when we go back to go ahead.
So, I want to thank you. Steve Willett said you wanted him to come tonight, but Steve is working, so Steve and I have worked together for many, many years on the Economic Development Task Force and currently on the Infrastructure Oversight Committee. And I would like to say this is the first time you've interviewed me in 7 years.
That's right.
In 2017, I was on my way to the Westports of the world in Westport, Ireland, County Mayo. And you interviewed me under a tree of the head of Westport.
Is that the last time that happened?
First and last. Well, this is the
Yeah,
second.
because there's
so
4 Westports in the world, or 5.
I think there are 20.
Well, there's a lot of Westports, but we're the first. Or is
I'm
there an argument about that?
older than the Irish.
And they used to get together.
So what I'm hoping that you guys will do is, I know I went through the first 3 articles really fast. If you have a question about the article that you think people would want to know, like what the heck is this article about, please jump in. So I talked about we're not having Article 1, Article 2, moving money around. Article 3 is the elected officials' compensations. Any questions so far? Article 4, I'm not going to talk about in detail, but Article 4 is the budget. So this is where, by department, personnel and expenses, this is where the money gets spent.
How is that different than the previous articles that you said were also about money?
Well, so the Article 2 is moving around fiscal year 24's money. So
Okay,
that's
so we're
the year
wrapping
we're
up
currently
this.
in.
Okay.
The Article 2 was moving around the current year. Article 3 is setting salaries for the next year. Article 4 is the next year's budget. So the budget starts from July 1 until June.
So come on time. Come at the beginning of the meeting. Don't
We
wait
try to
too
get, a
long.
lot of people will complain that we put the zoning stuff at the back, which is super interesting to certain people. But really, we cannot run the town at all if we don't have budgets, and that's why we put the budget stuff first. But the thing I want to say about the budget, without going into without talking specifically about the budget, is that this budget this year that's being proposed is $52.8 million. And I think we spend less than 10 minutes talking about the budget article. And part of the reason that we don't spend a lot of time talking about it at town meeting is because there have been so many meetings leading up to town meeting. So the select board had a proposal, they proposed it to the finance committee. The finance committee budget is the one you're gonna see in the warrant. But anybody can stand up and put a hold on the line and say, I think we should give this department more money. Now, you have to have a balanced budget at the end, and so if you're gonna give one department more money, you have to say where the money is coming from. But it's totally possible. But I just want people to get your head around $52 million
And
are being
there's
spent, and hardly
probably-
any conversation.
There's probably 300 people that come to town meeting. And those 300 people have the direct right with their hand, their vote, to make that decision on. I have not balanced a $52 million. Have you?
No, no.
Have you?
Well, the town meeting is actually the legislature.
Yeah.
And we don't have a mayor, we've got a select board of 5
Sure
people.
you bring
We
your
don't
mic.
have
Just
a-
bring it close.
We
Yeah,
don't
that's
have a
okay.
legislature, we have an open town meeting going back to 1787.
Nice.
And this is a tradition in New England that, on the one hand is quaint, and on the other hand is kind of frustrating from time to time, but,
But I think people forget the reality that that's a very large amount of money for the average person to look at and say, somebody's paid attention. I think it adds up. I don't think there's a mathematical mistake here.
It
What
does,
kind of, Carrie has amazing ability to, I'll use that word.
Pressure's
Confront
on,
people
Carrie.
on Facebook that are really looking for an argument. They really are ready for an argument.
That doesn't lead
What,
anywhere.
what kinds of things do you think you'll hear on Facebook when people say they're spending, the
yeah.
mysterious mays, we should always require quotes around they when it has to do with town government. Our town government is spending $52 million. What are people saying? They're saying that has to be more than Westport's worth, or I can't imagine.
It's not.
we're actually worth $5 billion, just so you know. We're 4.9, I think, is our assessed value.
No,
Does that make you feel better?
But Carrie, but I think people have this sense that there's all this waste in government, but we've line itemed it out. Like people say millions of dollars. There's only 3 budgets on here that exceed $1 million.
I haven't heard much this year about the budget.
Yeah, because they
Yeah.
probably will after the vote tonight.
Yeah.
But the budget is posted online and anybody can change it. And
So-
I don't recommend massive changes. If you're gonna add, you can't just add $1 million
Yeah.
to, Department X, because you have to say where you're going to decrease $1 million from which department.
And I think that's the thing that I notice when I go to town meeting, and I've been doing it for a long time, living in Massachusetts. People sort of assume that was created in your garage a week ago, and you didn't have an eraser, so it's the way it is.
We've been working on this budget since November.
No understanding that there were months and months and months, and there were multitudes of people who were looking at it, hoping to find a little bit more. Because we're talking about people's salaries, we're talking about all kinds of things that people are counting on, because we want them here every day. We want those roads plowed when it snowed.
Yeah.
So there has been a dedicated effort on the part of people who volunteer for the town on these committees, who work in the town. And so I think we should take another $10 off of the budget, or $100,000, is not really understanding the big picture.
I've been really scrutinizing this budget for 13 years, and I don't agree with everything on every line item, but it's not millions of dollars off. It's definitely not. But I appreciate people wanting to make sure that government is spending their money efficiently
Yeah.
and that it's going. But I think one of the things that I served on the finance committee for 5 years, but the thing about government is it isn't all about ROI in a monetary way. We are not a business. We are a community. And so we want to be efficient, we want to be effective, we want to spend our dollars wisely, but we're not making a profit, we are helping people. So the Council on Aging, the library, the school department, the highway department, police department, the fire department,
Department of Health.
Department of Health, you know.
What about the farmer's market?
We got some great stuff going on.
I've got some comments on
Yeah.
Okay.
So, do you want to move on to, so we have some articles
No,
that are going to be more interesting for
what we're
more
doing
here.
is we're digging in and we're looking for comments from everyone at our table, because we hope that the audience is understanding that in May 7th, Tuesday, May 7th, we're going to have a town meeting that has been thought about and prepared, and that you can do the same. You can go online and get the background. And we're not going to give anybody answers, right? They
And anybody wants to ask me questions, I'm happy to talk about it. Carrie sends me emails all the time. I'm pretty responsive.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think you kind of said this earlier. I think one of the things people don't understand is they think that the town government is like away, it's them. It's like, we're your neighbors. We have like 16,000 people in town, you know. People on these committees live next door to you or live in your neighborhood. Their kids go to school with your kids. Like, these are not like them away somewhere. This is like people you can actually have coffee with. I go to Partners or Lee's Market and have coffee with people, and
it
you
wouldn't
can.
function without our neighbors serving on these committees.
Yeah.
And trying to solve
Like
problems that
Maury,
are.
you've been on a million committees.
20 years of committees, yes.
What do you think about serving on committees? Would you highly recommend it to the people watching us today?
Of course I do. But I'm a 60s person. We believed in saving the world and all that good stuff. And so here I am at the age of
Saving the world.
77, still trying to save, at least I'm giving up on the whole world. Okay, but I've got this little corner of the world called Westport. And so I'm here to save Westport.
Thank you.
With water and sewer on Route 6
Wow.
and the farmer's market at the annex.
All right, should we move on to Article, we're only on Article
Absolutely.
5.
How many articles totally at town
Oh,
meeting?
you're gonna get me, I didn't look at the
We're gonna do them in one night?
We're gonna, 46, there's 46. They won't all take as long as the conversation. So Article 5 is capital expenditures. So we have a capital improvement planning committee. There's a meetup of select board members, finance committee members, I'm not sure who else is on there, but they look and see what are they get a list from the departments, what are the things we need in the departments to spend money. We usually have free cash, which I don't really want to talk about at the moment, but the town usually spends a good chunk of free cash to purchase capital stuff. So we have on this
Do we
year-
need a truck or we need?
on this year's warrant, we have a network firewall, we have 2 police cruisers, we have a forestry truck, we have a pickup truck and a trailer for the highway department. We have some bathroom upgrades at the elementary school, a maintenance truck for the school department. So these are like vehicles, and it's pretty typical to get vehicles purchased through using free cash. It's important to note that the Article 5 is spending about $1 million in free cash, but the list of requests for money is, I don't actually even know what it is. It's at least $10 million, possibly more. A lot of people will say, how come we're not maintaining our buildings, right? Why aren't we maintaining buildings? I can tell you why we're not maintaining your buildings, because we're making a decision. Do you upgrade the elevator or do you buy a police cruiser? Do you I just saw we got some grant for some ADA compliance for town hall, which I think is really exciting. But that's a grant. We got a grant to make our buildings accessible to people because the town hasn't decided that we needed to spend the money to make the buildings accessible to people. So it's,
And
it's
a grant
trade-off.
is a gift.
A
Although
grant
it
is a
takes
gift.
work to get the
It
gift.
takes a lot of volunteer effort to get grants. I
But
know
you
Carrie's been really excited about trying to get grant writers. I don't think we did put a grant writer in this budget yet.
But you don't have to pay a grant back.
But go back to free cash. That's,
Oh, I know you're
that's a
but we're never gonna get through the
really delicate word. Free. There's no
Not
such
free.
thing as free cash.
So this is what free cash is. So we have a budget. We said we were going to spend last year. Actually, I don't have the. Last year it was $50 million. Okay, so we had a $50 million budget last year. when you do all the math and you add up, some of the departments didn't spend all the money. So some of it was just departments just underspent, right? They can't overspend, so they're underspending their budget. So that money didn't get spent. And then you also have the situation where your local receipts came in higher than you forecasted. So we get a pretty healthy chunk of change from motor vehicle excise tax. So other than property tax, the second biggest one is local motor vehicle excise tax. So we project what we think the motor vehicle excise tax is going to be, but some years we have some really great car purchasing years, and
Right.
we end up with more excise tax than we thought we were going to get. Or meals and
And
meals
that's
and hotel
like a
tax.
check that would come from the
That's money
state.
that comes from you when you write a
I
check
know,
for your motor vehicle
but it's
excise tax.
accumulated out of Westport.
No, it is
Oh,
no,
it's
you write a
accumulated
check to
here.
the town of
Yeah,
West.
no, I know,
You probably
but-
just recently did
Yeah.
because they were just due. You wrote a check to the town of Westport for your motor
That's
vehicle
right, that's
excise
right,
tax,
that's right.
So maybe we underestimated that.
Yeah.
So this money that was either excess revenue that we didn't forecast or underspending
Right.
that we didn't forecast, and then that money is sitting there, right? So in your home, if you were doing that, you just kind of keep spending it, right? But the government can't do that. We cannot spend money outside of whatever town meeting said we
Okay.
could spend. So
So
there's
it's not free, it's
it
really
was-
encumbered
it was a
money.
previous year's budget.
Yeah.
It was misses in the previous year's budget, and it's not necessarily bad budgeting. It could have just been that, hey, we had a boom year for vehicles.
You think you could convey that information to people on Facebook?
It's
Yes.
hard to
I try to stick with the original question and not confuse people too much.
So the free cash, and this year we have a lot of free cash. I want to say it's almost, I don't want to say because it's over $2 million, but I forget how far over 2 million is. But that's a lot. But we have had years in Westport where we've only had a couple $100,000 of free cash. So, in fact, if you estimate your local receipts just right and you estimated your budget just right, you wouldn't have much free cash.
John, a question, how much free cash is going into stabilization?
It's probably one of the articles that I haven't seen.
Okay.
Is that important?
It's, there is free cash going to
Because
establish.
free cash should not go just thrown into the operating budget. It
Um,
should go for capital expenditures, $1 million is going for capital expenditures, but also it should go into stabilization.
So we're gonna talk about we're skipping all the way to Article 43, okay?
Wait a minute, you skipped 14, 15, 16.
I skipped all the way to 43 because you mentioned it. So Article 43 establishes a special education reserve fund. So a special education reserve fund, when we get high needs special education students in town, it can be a very large outlay for the town for this special needs student to get the appropriate services. And the next year, we get some state reimbursements that kind of pay for it. But that first year that you get that special education student can be quite costly for the town, and it varies a lot. You can have a year where you have like 2 students that need like 500 grand worth of stuff, and so it really skews your budget. So this special education reserve fund is not a stabilization fund, which we'll get to, but it's sort of like a stabilization fund so that you
Yes.
can use it for these situations, right?
Yeah.
So Article 43.
No, the school is half the budget, so.
It's a huge part of the budget. So Article 43 is establishing this special education reserve fund, and then it's actually putting some money in there that was from another school project that didn't spend all the money. So we're starting that special education reserve fund.
And I don't have children in school, so why should I be concerned about that?
Because it really impacts, like I said, if you get a $500,000 of unanticipated expense on a $52 million budget, that's a pretty sizable fraction,
Right.
right? And so, and you have to pay it. You're required
It's
to pay it.
planning ahead.
So putting a reserve fund is planning ahead. You're saving just in case this happens. Or it's not just in case this happens, like when this happens, you're going to use separate money.
Yeah.
So Article 43 establishes that kind of fund. Article 44 transfers, there was a May 23 town meeting for the elementary school master clock that appropriated money. And that they didn't spend it all, so they're going to put that money into the special education reserve fund. So Article 45 is a capital stabilization fund. Now, we don't always we haven't always appropriated to a capital stabilization fund. So the capital stabilization fund is specifically for capital purchases like vehicles, buildings, things like that. So the 5-year plan that the select board worked on had a kind of a philosophy that a certain percentage of your free cash should go to the capital stabilization fund and a certain percentage of your free cash should go to the regular stabilization fund, because you need to fund those up, right?
If the community came together in the fall to think ahead for what are the areas that we really need to think about the future, that would be a discussion. Where do you take this, where do you start to build these funds? You're now creating, or at least the town is going to create, special needs, which really has been a big drain on the schools. You're talking about buildings not being repaired, so you're creating a fund. And those kinds of really wise, thoughtful, planning ahead decisions could be a group of people sitting around.
You know who's doing it? The Capital Improvement Planning Committee,
Okay.
the school committee, the select board, the finance committee, all doing that.
All during the year, really looking
In
at that.
October, the town administrator goes and queries all the departments, hey, tell us what your needs are, right? So the planning of how you're gonna distribute, how you're gonna budget for it is not so much the departments, but the department, this is an ongoing
Right,
process.
it's all year round.
And I just want to close out the stabilization. So the stabilization fund that you were talking about is like the rainy day fund for the town,
Yeah,
right?
the one that's been in existence
And
for a long time.
yeah, and that's the last article. It's always the last article because it appropriates this money over to the stabilization fund. I don't have in front of me how much the
Okay.
finance committee has recommended for those, but
Okay.
stabilizations are really our stabilization fund right now, I want to say has less than $2 million in it, and the state guidelines is significantly higher. Like it's a percentage of
It's
your
a
budget. that you
percentage of
should
the
be
budget,
putting
isn't
in
it,
there.
Shauna?
Yeah,
Isn't the guideline, yeah, so, yeah.
yeah. So
But we could possibly add the rainy day fund, plus the special needs, plus capital.
and I believe all of them have some appropriation going in them.
Yeah,
Or do you
so
think
the-
that most people who pay attention to how the town is operating are aware of these reserves that we're creating to protect us from?
I think most people are aware of the stabilization fund, and, you know, the conservatives in town like to build it up. And because we do have a 2008 from time to time, we do have a 2020 from time to time, when finances go haywire. And we need to dip into that stabilization fund at that time, but in good times like today, we should be putting money in.
Yeah, absolutely. You absolutely should.
And Carrie, do you think the people that are beginning to engage in community through elections, through questions, are really paying attention to how the town is thinking to move ahead?
I believe the ones who are paying attention, yes.
What
They're
about the
really-
ones that are arguing all the time about decisions?
People are going to argue.
I can only explain it. But I noticed that people this year seem to want to engage more.
Yeah.
We've had, so I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, that's what I noticed about the work you've been doing to try to engage people, to try to provide information. I think that's what Charter is doing. It's just such a vast amount of information. Can people
is.
read this before they come to, would that be
Yes.
useful?
Yeah, if it's not on the website now, then it should be soon. The select board approved it last night. So I'm going to speed through some of these because I want to talk about some of the more interesting
Great.
ones. These are kind of the basics. Article 6 is lets the treasurer borrow money. The treasurer has to just do that to move stuff around. We have some enterprise funds. So an enterprise fund is separated from the regular general fund so that you have a special purpose fund. And so you have, they get revenue coming in and then they're spending their revenue. So there's several articles. Article 7 is for the Marine Services Enterprise. Article 8 is for the Waterline Enterprise. Article 9 is the Town Beaches Enterprise. Article 10 is Community Television Budget. So those are protected budgets where their income and their outputs are separate. So they have to be appropriated separately because nobody can spend any money unless town meeting authorizes it. Then we have Article 11 and 12, which involves revolving funds. So we have a bunch of different programming. The one that's easiest to explain is the ambulance revolving fund. If you get the ambulance call, you know, we have some top-notch paramedics are gonna come out in our ambulance. Their health insurance or whoever is gonna pay for the ambulance ride, right? So what they do is they put a certain percentage of the income that they get from ambulance runs into the ambulance revolving fund, and then that's how they're gonna purchase the next ambulance, is they use the income from the ambulance to fund the future ambulances. And a lot of programs have this. Council on Aging has this for their social daycare, their transportation.
Yeah.
The fire department also has some hazardous material. Your building inspectors, like your plumbing, your inspector, your gas inspector, so you know you pay permit fees for that. Those permit fees.
Farmers Market has one too.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I hope.
Yeah,
you
economic, you are, Westport
Well,
Economic Development Task
Force.
Force, $6,000 revolving fund.
Okay.
So,
And those are all funds that are making money
the money is
to
coming in.
contribute to the cost of their happening.
Right.
Well,
and-
we're running the farmer's market through
Yeah.
the revolving fund. We get
Right.
vendors' fees coming in,
Yeah.
and then we have expenses for advertising and for use of the recreation
And they come out.
committee facility.
And whatever that maximum is, so in the case of the farmer's market, it's $6,000. If they were to make income in excess of $6,000, they only get to keep the $6,000, the rest goes to the general fund. So like the ambulance revolving fund is $190,000. If they collected more than $190,000, that would go to the general fund. But this kind of
Nobody
protects
can
it.
get greedy in these enterprise zones that you've created.
Yeah. So again, I'm trying to get through to the more interesting
Sure.
articles. Although I think they're all interesting.
But I want to
let
make
us
sure
come
that we're not rushing so
No,
much.
we are, but we're
the
not- but we're gonna get to the one-
But the
we wanna
people
get
that
to-
are listening understand they can go back and ask questions. You
Yeah.
know, if you've done it as many times as probably Shauna has, but Maury, other people, sometimes you
So our-
forget that other people that are just getting started are kind of wondering. So I
So-
want to comment on where can we get people to feel comfortable to say,
Yeah.
whoa, let me understand this. It sounds like the town is working really hard and has a history of that in your 20 years, Maury, comment on that, to try to find ways to increase the revenue through these enterprise zones, through saving money,
The
through-
enterprise
not zones,
funds
but
really
yeah,
are not part of the general budget. They,
yeah.
we need to, we get most of our budget from property taxes. We get 2/3 of it from property taxes and 1/3 from user fees.
Which is a very individual way for you and I to contribute to the town. It's
Yes.
our
And all the
property.
property owners, I think there are 8,000 properties in town, and we all contribute property taxes to 2/3 of the general budget. The other thing, the way to make it grow, because of Proposition 2.5, well, we can grow at 2.5% a year. We all know about Proposition 2.5. But there's something called new build. And new build is an addition to Proposition 2.5 without raising the tax rate. And so that's one of the reasons why we're hopeful that the
And
water
that's the
sewer-
same as debt
Well, we
exclusion.
call that debt new growth.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
usually call that new growth, the same.
So that it's a one-time focused decision that is
I
made.
promise
Go
we're
ahead.
getting so
We're-
close
We're
to
gonna,
these
we're gonna let
articles.
you rev up. We want to hear all of this.
I want to get to Article 14.
I don't want-
Yeah, he wants to get to
I don't want
Then I want to go check some votes.
So Article
No, we're connected.
Well, it's already
You'll
9
hear.
o'clock, so Article 13 is Community Preservation Committee. Please go look at what Community Preservation Committee is doing. They're doing some really great things.
That's an amazing
It's a
revenue.
great program.
And it's
I'm-
also, we all contribute to that.
we contribute to that. If you look at your tax bill, you're contributing a percentage to the community preservation, and they just do such a phenomenal job. The big noticeable ones you're going to see now is the Town Hall Annex Playground, which is community preservation and a very generous grant. And then we have on this year's warrant for the Bicentennial Park Playground, and I think they're looking for some grants there. So they're doing more than just playgrounds, but in order to get to Article 14, 15, 16, we're gonna just, community preservation is a great thing. Article 14 on the warrant is the kind of sister article to the ballot question that we voted on today.
Yes, it is almost. Yeah.
So the ballot question that we voted on today was, if we go forward with this water sewer project, can we use it as excluded debt to pay for it? So this is so it doesn't count on the 2.5%. So today's ballot was, can we use excluded debt to pay for this project? And I know it did not have a dollar amount. We are not allowed to put a dollar amount because only town meeting can set a dollar amount, okay?
And we're also asking, can we exclude it?
And
the
so
Yeah.
the ballot question tonight, we'll know, does
Yeah.
Westport want to be able to use excluded debt for this or not? That's the only question tonight is, if we go forward with this project, can we use excluded debt? That's the ballot question. Now, this Article 14, first of all, says, should the town appropriate amount of $35 million
Up
to
to,
pay,
I think.
it says appropriate a sum of $35 million to pay for the costs associated with this project, right? Now, the number 35 million can be modified on the floor of town meeting.
Okay,
So
that's
this is
important
the
for
number
everyone.
one question that I'm getting. If town meeting said, you know what? So it's important to know that we're gonna have the bids back on the project before town meeting. And the bids are constructed, so there's a phase 1 and then there's 2 other phases, right? But
Engineers
before you-
keep changing the nomenclature, but
Okay.
basically we have contract 1,
There's-
2, and 3.
Okay, so there's contract 1, 2, it's 3 parts, right? So there's contract 1, now you can't do contract 2 until you do contract 1 because
Yes.
it's a pipe,
Yes,
okay?
it's right.
So, but it is a possible outcome at town meeting could decide, you know what, we only want to fund this first part. And so somebody at town meeting could rise to modify the question, or to modify the question to some amount other than 35 million.
My
You
understanding
cannot
is
go
that- yes,
higher
okay, I
than
wanted to
35
mention that.
million.
You can't go
So
up,
the
but you can go
reason, I think your committee got a lot of criticism about why did you make it so high? They had to make it high because town meeting can reduce it, but town meeting cannot make it bigger.
Increase it, okay.
Okay, so that's why they used their best judgment of what the maximum value of the project was gonna be. That's where the $35 million
To
came
go
from.
the full distance,
To go the full distance for the trunk line.
yes.
And only the trunk line, and it's gonna put stubs at the areas in case there's build out in the future, but it's just the trunk line, but it is water and sewer. And that is what Article 14 is.
Yes, that is pretty much the same as the ballot today.
It's completely different than the ballot today.
Well, I mean, it's
The ballot today was, can we use excluded debt? The Article 14 is, should we use this money? Now, it does say, should we use this money subject to being able to use excluded? Okay.
Today's vote is about debt exclusion, not including it in our
Yeah,
regular.
budget.
But Article
2.5.
Article 14 would, like, you couldn't say, if the vote goes no today, and they say, no, you can't use excluded debt. Article 14 could still pass
Yeah.
and say, yeah, town meeting wants it to pass at whatever number it wants to pass. That could still pass, but you can't actually spend any of that money unless you take you rip $35 million out of our $52 million budget. That would be one way you could do it. Nobody would.
Nobody's.
But, so.
But they really are two questions. They don't need to
They
be
don't
one.
have to go together, but you
But
can't.
they will at some point
have-
have to go together.
There is no way to spend any money in Article 14 without a debt exclusion.
Okay. And that's because we don't want to increase the value that we're taxed on. We want to keep
Well,
that.
because if you're gonna fund a $35 million project, how are you gonna do that?
Right.
We do fund,
It doesn't go through the general budget,
Yeah.
but it
We
does
don't.
go on your property
we
tax
don't,
bill.
we don't want it to go through the general budget, but
And we
it,
estimate,
Well,
for
most
a
of the
house that's appraised-
conversation around this article was individual costs.
right,
That, you
because
know,
it's not $35 million in one big chunk, right?
Yeah.
You're borrowing $35 million over, I don't know if we talk about 20, 25
Mhm,
years, you're borrowing over it. So the hit to the operating budget would be, what is it, like $1 million? I don't remember. You might know.
Well, it's interest and principal.
The interest and principal on the 35 million, so
It's an amortization table like a.
And,
Yeah.
and the bigger argument is some people really feel this is absolutely necessary for the future of the town, and some people feel this is absolutely unnecessary
Yes.
for their pocketbook.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I think, so it's important to know that even if the vote goes no today, we're still gonna talk about Article 14 at town meeting. That will still come up, there will still be a discussion. It might change to a different number, but there will still be a discussion. If Article 14 passes, in order to actually do the project, you'd have to have another ballot question.
Okay.
To fund that, which might be more palatable once there's a dollar amount in a specific project and more specificity.
But it
on
could
what
take
the
another
covers are.
year or two for people to finally figure out.
I don't see your list. We have a lot of elections this year. We already had the March primary, our town clerk's office. We had the presidential primary in March. We had tonight's town election. We have the town meeting we were talking about on May 7th. We have a state primary election. Not very many people vote in that one, but September 30, there's a state primary election. And then obviously the presidential election in November.
right.
And there might be a special election for this one. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So Article 15, I know there's like lots to talk about, but Article 15 is the betterment question. So Article 15 is the town going to authorize a body, either the select board or sewer commission, to assess betterments on those benefiting from the sewer project? And what it says in the article is using the uniform unit method, 20% of project costs, establish an interest rate of 5% to be assessed on late payments, and then provide for the deferral for seniors exempt under certain laws, right? So Article 15, I've had a lot of people, and I think I was confused and probably confused you, Carrie. The select board isn't setting the betterments. The town meeting has to set the betterments, and that's what Article 15.
Can you just expand on that word, betterment?
Let's let Maury talk about that.
Well, if you put water and sewer in a street in front of a person's home, you better the value of it. And that's why it's called a betterment. And that's why we have a provision in Mass General Law, what is it, 83, that provides for betterments. It is it's a taxation. And so it has to be, it's all very legal, and it has to be, approved by town meeting. People have to, we have a democracy, we tax ourselves, so, we have to approve the betterment, and the Board of Selectmen, who are the water commissioners, and hopefully after Article 16 become the sewer commissioners, are the ones who would administer that. And basically it's very complex.
But
okay?
it's specific to the people that are
It's
bettering
specific to
their
the-
property.
To the property, to the commercial building or the house, when the water and sewer come through. Now, we're not gonna charge a betterment for water, but we are gonna charge it on sewer. And it's gonna be probably in the $8,000 to $9,000 range for one house, what we call one EDU. But then commercial properties have multiple EDUs. Obviously, a duplex would have two and whatnot. And so, but a basic house would have one at probably in the $8,000 to $9,000 range for this project.
So a senior citizen that has been looking at all of this is really kind of beginning to focus on what's that going to mean to me? Because the other numbers, 35 million,
It's a $9,000 to $10,000 charge lien on your property.
not this week, not probably this year.
No, it could be, you can
When
pay,
the
you can pay
when
it
the
up front
sewer
if you want.
becomes when the sewer becomes operational in a place where you can tie into it,
Okay.
that's when it moves.
You can pay it all up front, or you can pay it over 20 years. Or an elderly person
The betterment
might-
increase, you were saying?
Yeah, that 9, 10.
I have never heard that. So an elderly.
We don't know yet how many EDUs.
Yeah,
Our
but I'm
engineers are
saying
still working on the number of
that's
EDUs.
important for people
And we
that,
don't know the final cost. We won't know it actually till the.
but you're saying that there is
Yeah.
an option for people who do have to deal with that
Yes.
if this all moves.
There are
That they're
options.
not gonna have to write a check that day.
No,
Correct.
no.
I think that's important.
Of course
You know,
it is.
people do save for the future in
Yes.
bits and
Oh, and
pieces.
today,
Did you
people
wanna?
People don't have a lot of money today,
Yeah.
especially someone on a fixed income.
Yeah.
And this, I think, is the biggest concern I hear. It's the betterments.
Yeah, because because that's and then because the homeowner. I know we talk. I think the most of the betterment money is going to come from commercial people, right? But the
Yeah.
people voting on it are the people who live in the
That's
homeless
right,
area,
that's
right?
right.
So the
On Route 6, there's probably there are probably 700 EDUs, and there are probably 20 single-family homes. So
Oh, wow.
this
What
is
does that
all
mean?
virtually all going to come
is
from
almost all going to
commercial.
come from commercial.
On
Business.
this first project, the
Good.
Trotline project.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's not all, but people are worried about, because if you're a homeowner and that sewer is right in front of your house, you're one of the, you know, however many houses that is there, you're immediately going to be assessed a betterment, which you have 20 years to pay, but it's money that you're gonna owe. If you tie in, it's $990 each for water and sewer, right, to tie in, to start your service,
That
to start the
is
service.
an estimate. We do
Right,
know
so-
that Fall River's $330, and we're thinking of tripling it because we need.
So roughly $2,000 to
Because-
start service.
Mhm.
You have a monthly cost, but they're estimating $137 monthly because you're paying for water sewer. But then the big cost is tying in. You have to tie in. So instead of building a septic system, you're gonna have to tie in, and I think that's estimated $30,000 to $45,000.
Yeah.
No, well, that would be, a Title V, if you had a failed system.
No,
So-
the tying in to the.
No, tying in would start, well, it all depends really, but tying in starts at about $5,000, that's from Kleinfelder, and then goes up. If you right now have your cesspool or your septic in the front yard, well, it's right next to the sewer. So, all your pipe in the basement is all configured to come out the front of your house. But if it's in Title V is in the backyard, and all your piping in the basement is targeted toward the backyard, it's all got to be reconfigured in the basement to the front yard.
No, I was just saying,
Do we
make
have-
sure you look at the camera once in a while so they know.
Oh.
Well, we were looking, I thought somebody was coming
There's
in
one
the
up,
hallway.
there's one up there too.
It's getting you.
So betterments, I think, is gonna be more conversation. I personally believe the select board should talk about it a little bit more before town meeting, so we have better information comes out, and then
A question
yeah.
on what you said, I'm sorry, you said tripling it, and then I couldn't hear the last part of that, because
So
I know
the-
somebody's gonna ask me
So
that.
Fall River charges $330 for a water hookup and $330 for a sewer hookup. Jim Hartnett believes we should triple that number for the project so that it gives us some money. We hope we will have an enterprise fund, gives us some cash here so that we can manage the sewer enterprise fund.
Rather than all going to Fall River for.
Well, no, I mean, they'll
Well,
get
they're
their,
gonna get there.
addition
they'll get
to
their $330 for
Rivers.
the water and the $330 for the sewer, but.
But we have to
So that
manage it,
number is
right?
negotiable, it's not set in stone, but it is the suggestion of our town administrator.
That's gonna be a tough sell.
Yeah, the town of Westport has to administer, like we administer the water bills right now,
Right.
right? So the town of Westport assesses the water
Mhm.
bill, and we collect the money, and then we pay Fall River, right? And so we're gonna have to do that in the future. There's a
Right.
cost associated
Right.
with that. But I think the specific costs, estimates for the specific homes, I think is really important to get more clarity on that. And then the betterment conversation, where are the betterments? I think there's more.
I had someone estimate my property, it's gonna be about 35.
About 35 to hook in, right? And then you have to pay your monthly fee
Yeah,
to.
then now you have a sewer and a water bill.
I think part of the problem, like I think the challenge that your committee has is people think that your septic and your well are free, right? Because I don't pay every month for my septic and my well. But when I do have to pay for my septic or well, it's pretty darn expensive.
Well, the last time I bought a water pump, 118 feet underground, it was $1,300.
Yeah.
So, and then I have, my box pumped out for $200 or $300 every 3 years.
So-
it's,
Yeah, so then Article 16 is to create a sewer commission.
yes.
So Article 16 is basically the select board is going to temporarily be the sewer commission, and the select board could permanently be the sewer commission. I don't think the select board wants to be the sewer commission. I don't think we want to be the water commission either. But Article 16 would say, okay, the sewer commission now is going to be managed by elected officials, and then that whole logistics will be worked out in 2025.
Or appointed.
Or appointed, right? So Article 16 is who should serve as the sewer commission.
And I favor appointed, because I think we need people with considerable knowledge to run a water and a sewer commission. And so it would be, I think the Board of
I do
Selectmen
really-
who does the appointing.
Think with the conversations that have gone on before and our little conversation here, the whole idea of what an individual is going to be obligated to has got to have more clarity before you go to the meeting,
Absolutely.
because that's going to hold the whole thing
Yeah,
up.
I think so.
Based on the fact that if somebody can't do it, what happens? Now, there has to be some, if some person is on the line, on this main line that's going down, you don't have to buy into the sewer.
Well,
But you do have to pay the betterment.
what if they have a cesspool?
That will be law.
If you have a cesspool, they have to upgrade, they have to remediate the cesspool. Yeah, it doesn't have to be through the sewer hookup, but they do
Oh,
have to
okay.
remediate it.
Well, the Board of Health is now
The
saying.
sewer hookup is probably more economical
The-
and practical than
The
most.
Board of Health is now saying 2028 for all removal of all cesspools. in
Oh,
town.
okay, good. A little
It
bit
was
of time for
2026, but, you know, given the initiative with the sewer, they've moved that to 2028.
So there
Activity
is a
downstairs.
process moving forward to upgrade what, I mean, a cesspool is like the oldest of,
People are going
Hole in the
to.
ground.
It does nothing for bacteria, it does nothing for nitrogen.
yeah.
Yeah, so just on that sewer commission, no, there is a similar article for a municipal light plant commission, Article 32, basically the same sort of thing. If you're gonna have a municipal light board, should it be elected or appointed? So there's two articles. Now, I know there's a lot of zoning articles that people are super jazzed about talking about. We don't have anyone here at the zoning commission, and also they're kind of later in the warrant. So do you want me to skip down to some of those, or do you want me to just
Why don't you
keep
give us
going
an
through?
idea of the areas that we're going to deal with on zoning?
On
What-
zoning?
You know, sort of the broader sense.
A lot of
Because
chatter.
it's after 9, we're hoping
We're
that
hoping that
the
there's-
tally, but I have a feeling that
How are the election results going to come?
they're
gonna
gonna,
text.
they're gonna call me.
Yeah.
She
They're
got
gonna
my
call
number.
it in, what, from
Yeah.
downstairs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
Well, they have to maintain security
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
ballots and such. So Article 33, I might have to phone a friend on these. Okay, Article 33 is related to short-term rentals. So this is changing the definition and table of use regarding short-term rentals. I'm not going to try to summarize this. There was a number of meetings that were held. I know this one had a lot of attention a few months ago. Some of you will remember there have been at least one problematic property from a short-term rental, and which kind of poisoned the well for a lot of people.
Right.
So you had a couple bad actors, and now you have to make a bunch of laws that affect everybody. So this is again, I'm not going to try to summarize it, but Article 33 is regulating the short-term rentals. So people who are
think that's
using
enough.
Airbnb or VRBOs, if you have an Airbnb or VRBO or whatever, you're probably paid attention to that article. Article 34 is changing the science and technology overlay district. So this is the area up by White's. I don't remember the bounds of where that district
The
is.
science and
It's not,
technology?
it's, if you know where Meatworks is, it's the
So
big
down to Meatworks.
property, mostly more messier property behind that. The STOD, the Science Technology Overlay District, was established, what, 10 or 15 years ago?
Yeah.
By the planning board and by, town meeting. But it has no sewer, and so nothing has happened there except for Meatworks. And Meatworks has a horrible bill taking the effluent from the slaughtering process in a truck every day to the Fall River. So there's no sewer. They can save a ton of money if they could have sewer.
So I think the big
And
part
the
here.
sod would,
Yeah.
it's just having sewer there, the water is already going there, but having sewer there will be a big benefit.
I think
to
the part
both.
that I've seen more concern about is what they're doing is they're changing the science and technology overlay district to a mixed use district for residential and commercial. And so they're allowing some entertainment options that wouldn't have been allowed before, and housing. So it changes the mix for housing. And people far more versed on this than I am could explain that we have because of our proximity to South Coast Rail, Westport is going to have to comply with some more dense zoning in closer
Affordable.
proximity. And my understanding is if we don't comply with the zoning, we lose funding from the state. Now, I don't know the specifics around that, but what the planning board is trying to do with this article was comply with the state requirement for the zoning density we have to have so that we would still be eligible for state funding related to this. But I appreciate that this one is somewhat controversial. The people that live there are worried about having high density housing in there. Is it going to be affordable housing? Is it going to be market rate housing? Is it going to, have hundreds of school children flooding the school district? Is it going to change? Are we going to have a bunch of tenements along? And there's a lot of people that are really worried about
And
this.
we have a month for people to start to really talk and
I
get
would-
more information.
I would really encourage all of these planning articles, zoning articles would have had public forums specifically for this article. So go check out the planning board website and check out the
YouTube.
meetings on
Go-
YouTube.
The government.
Because they would have had to have forums to talk about.
They did,
these.
yeah.
I was at them all.
Valerie recorded them all, so please go watch them. But these are not, zoning is hard because by the time you hit the zoning articles in town meeting, especially because we're gonna have a somewhat controversial one on the water and sewer, it's gonna be late and possibly into day 2. I think it's been a while since we've had a multi-day town meeting, but
Back in 2004, when water and sewer was on town meeting, it went for 5 nights. And 2.5 of those nights were the water and sewer.
yeah, so
So get
But we're
ready
not
for a
scaring
multi-night.
people off. We're
So
telling
Article-
people,
Multi-night,
do some
Yeah.
homework.
Article 34, please go read it, and they're hard to read, but also, the zoning articles also say amend this section and put this in. So you almost have to look at the existing zoning bylaw and then like try to figure out what they're swapping out, right? It's very complicated anybody at town meeting can move to change anything in this article is super complicated because so much time and effort went in to tie everything all together that some of the weirdness in our current zoning is because previous town meetings would have done that and then you get stuff that's inconsistent. But absolutely read Article 34. Article 35.
excuse me for a minute, I'm
Gonna
going
go
to
check, gonna run downstairs.
check some things, I'll be back.
So 35 is congregate living definitions. The zoning has to have a lot of definitions. Article 36 is related to, again, that district. I thought they were calling it the Gateway District, but I don't see
Yeah,
that.
Gateway is from, I believe, Fall River to Meatworks-ish, right?
Oh, yeah, so that's Article 37. I didn't get to Article 36. So Article 37 is adding that Gateway District. And this is, again, so they can have different kind of zoning, particularly housing density zoning and in that area. So there are a lot of, I had, when we had the forum at the library over the weekend, somebody asked the question, can't we decouple the zoning articles from the water and sewer project? And the answer is, we don't have to decouple them, they are already
Yeah.
decoupled. They are not, a lot of it is preparing for the idea that you're gonna have water and sewer, but they're completely independent articles. You can change or
But
pass or
the-
not pass these.
They seem like you have to do a lot more homework to really know what is being agreed upon or what is
Zoning
being
is
planned.
very complicated,
Yeah.
but it also isn't, and this is another one where people didn't really understand what was going on, they didn't really hear about the forums, and all of a sudden they're gonna vote on it, and they're like, wait, nobody told me. And this is one, like, please tell us how to tell you. Tell us how to tell you that
Absolutely.
these things are
I think
coming.
that was where I started when we started talking tonight, that we need to know how people get their news. And we need to find out better ways to get the news. Now, these videos that recorded the sessions that tried to explain are available on both the government channel and on the YouTubes. And maybe people should be reminded, but bottom line, you have to do some homework. If you come to this and you do stay and it's late and you're starting to say, I don't know why I'm listening to this, zoning is how we share this space together so that you don't have everybody doing
I
whatever
really like
they
how
want.
you just said that. Zoning is about how do we share the space, right? How do I don't want an Amazon fulfillment center next to my property. I wouldn't, no matter where I live in property, I wouldn't want that, right? But, so do we even allow that at all? Do we not allow that at all? Do we?
And we have the opportunity to do that, but the state is also saying you can't just build expensive homes like the ones near me that are costing $1 million, and people are saying, I should have bought that when it was $100,000. So the prices of housing keep making people leave the state and certainly leaving this town. So we're trying to say, how can we make, especially with the train coming in?
Yeah, I think the train, like.
Let's get
I
ahead
think
of.
some of us are like still skeptical the train's coming, but I drove by the
It's been
station.
so many years.
I drove by the
train is
station the other
coming.
day, and it looks like it's the Fall River one anyway. I think the New Bedford one's delayed. So there are a lot of zoning articles. Zoning articles are complicated and confusing. No one's trying to put anything over on anyone. They're written in very precise legal language because it's legal. It's a legal document that you're amending here. So totally respect people want to ask questions. They need more information. Try to find the sites that we have it already. I don't know if there's any other sessions planned on the zoning. I don't. Do you know that? Did they talk about that on the?
No.
But the zoning board, you can get access to
So
their
the planning
secretary.
board, so the planning board is the one that proposes the zoning articles. The zoning board of appeals is when people say, hey, you're violating the zoning articles.
Or I want to
Then
change.
people, or you want to have an
Yeah.
exception.
The planning
variance.
board is there, their staff is there, so if you have a question, I'm sure you can call and say, please help me understand if this is going to impact on me.
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated, they're written in a complicated way.
Well, you've gotten us all excited. We'll have to
And I
probably
skipped
get
some.
new outfits. We'll probably have to plan a party. We'll have to think of all kinds of festive things to
So
do.
I didn't look to see, the warrant, if it's not posted on the
It's not.
website, I'm hoping they'll get it up there after that. I'll send a note to the town administrator and the assistant to see if they can get it up there.
Great.
Because people need to take time, especially the only ones, people need to.
But they do need to come to town meeting and stay as long as they can stay. And as you told us at the very beginning, we have real control. We can look at those numbers.
Here's one thing, I did this in research in the last, after the 2020 election, right? When you vote for president, your vote in the presidential race, it's a Massachusetts election, right? So in the presidential race in 2020, I want to say there were 3 million votes cast in Massachusetts. So your vote was one of 3 million, right? So
It counted.
it counts, but it's one of 3 million, okay? When you vote for state senate, your vote for a state senator, I want to say there's about 50,000. I don't have my numbers exactly right, but they're directionally right. About 50,000 people. So when you vote for state senators, you're like one of 50,000. When you vote for state rep, and we have an open state rep seat this year, the incumbent is not running. The state rep, probably 20,000 people will vote for state rep. So you've got maybe, you're 1 in 20,000 in state rep. This election tonight, if we get 3,000, that would be amazing.
That would be amazing.
3,000 would be a really good turnout. I'm really curious.
Out
to
of
see
how
what the
many
turnout
that
is.
was there? 16?
There are like 11,000 registered voters.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But 3,000 would be huge. A town election usually has about 2,000 voters, so your vote is one of 2,000. But at town meeting, there might be an article that someone can pack a meeting with maybe 800 people who will vote on that one thing and leave. Like I have seen that happen. But town meeting, if you get 300 people at a town meeting, that's a pretty well attended town meeting. 300 people are deciding a $52 million
Yes.
budget.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and all that other stuff I just talked about, the zoning changes, the character changes you're making, the capital purchase you're equipping, you're one of 300 is a pretty big fraction. And a lot of people don't really realize your entire property tax bill and your motor vehicle excise bill are going to the town government. That's your money.
Your investment,
You
really.
have an investment there. A lot of people, you have your taxes taken out in your escrow account, and so you're not writing a check to the town of Westport every day. But you're probably spending as much in the town of Westport as you are to the federal government in many cases, and people just don't pay that much attention. You have so much more power locally,
Yeah.
But also you need to be informed, and
Well, that's the
you
gap.
need to elect
That's the
people
gap.
who you
And-
think are going to represent.
And the gap is, how are people getting their news? And they're getting their news nationally on their television or on their computer. They're getting their even state news the same way, not as often, not as much, but they also get to see their state senator, their state rep, because they show up at events. but
And they're online for the,
Right.
those that,
you know,
yeah.
they're just not looking for what's actually being put together. You said this earlier, these are our neighbors that are going to these meetings, that are doing this over and over. These are people with really wonderful professional backgrounds. So I think we're going to check with the town clerk. We are very
We don't
close
think
to
there's
getting
any-
answers. Valerie, why don't we put things on hold for a minute or two
Well-
here?
Yeah, well, I don't know, does people, anything?
We're still checking.
We're just waiting.
We're waiting patiently, maybe
Are
not so
there,
patiently.
are there people
anymore.
downstairs?
There's people everywhere.
There's people everywhere. I want to call out for the town, I can keep knocking there.
Yeah.
You can take a break.
Well, nobody's going to be listening to us. We just talked an hour and a half. So I want to make sure that we remind everybody that we are going to announce the totals for the election today, hopefully before midnight. That is my goal. But we have a big turnout for the elections today. So we have some real important information that Shauna's going to share about beach passes.
Yeah, so the town clerk's office, I'm really excited to see that, like, we're waiting, I feel like they're on the hot seat now trying to count the ballots right now, but, and then there's gonna be the number of write-ins areas, right? Those were not gonna be announced tonight. But, if you didn't know already, beach permits are available online now. And the new town clerk, when she came on board, that was one of the first things she did, is they're using a process called City Hall Systems. So City Hall Systems is a secure bill payment site, and you can complete your application at cityhallsystems.com. There's more information on the town clerk's website. I know that they had people at the library and the Council on Aging got some training. So if you don't have a computer or it's difficult for you to try to figure out how to work it, people at the Council on Aging and the library
Well,
can help you.
there's technical classes, but there's also just people that will help you. If you really don't feel you know how to use a computer to get to this website, but you want, there will be plenty of people to help that happen for you. You can get your beach
What I think
passes.
is really excited about that is that we had a real collaborative effort amongst a lot of groups. So you have the town clerk who kind of was willing to implement this service. I think this was part of a grant that we got from Senator Rodericks. Had a grant that we could use or an earmark that we could use for technology. We had obviously the beach committee was involved in changing the process. And then, like I said, you had the people at the library and the Council on Aging were really stepped up to help people with the training to how to help the citizens to do that. I think it's a really good way of people working
The
together.
response was very positive at the council, except that people were not sure it was secure, which I think was the only
Yeah.
thing that was not said in the early days. We'll get a website, we'll be able to do this, but it's money. And
It
so once they began to say, no, it will be a very secure website, people slowly but surely got themselves on board. These are so important in today's world. Everybody,
I'm
buys
really
your
excited
tickets
about
online.
the permitting is exciting, except I'm really excited about permitting because I don't know when it's going to be launched or if it has already launched, but we're just going to do building permits online too. That's huge.
Yeah.
Because that really saves contractors and the people hiring the contractors a lot of money to be able to do your building permits online. So I think that's super exciting. I just don't know the status of that current.
I don't see it here yet.
Yeah, I don't think-
Taxes, parking tickets.
Yeah, so the taxes and parking, there's some things you can pay, the collector's office has got, so you can pay online, yeah.
Shauna has been talking for an hour and a half.
I love listening to her. She's so informative.
It's amazing. But Carrie, talk a little bit about what you learned during this election season, because I have been delighted to see how you tried to respond and provide a source of information
I do.
for the community. What have you learned doing all of this? That you can survive despite it all?
I learned that once people are comfortable, they get a little bit more interested. So I've tried to create a place where they can speak freely, be comfortable. I think a lot of not speaking up at town meeting is because, again, they're not comfortable.
Yeah.
And I don't want to separate, but the people that are online aren't necessarily going to go to town meeting
Yeah.
and stand up. So if there was a way, I've learned that there's a problem. And if there was a way we could merge all of this technology and people together, we'd have a much bigger turnout, I think.
Merge being what? I don't quite know what you mean when you say merge.
Well, help town meeting to become a little more user-friendly for the internet,
Oh,
so they can participate from home.
So like a webinar where you can have Q&A and you can have online chat going
That
on
would
and
draw
stuff.
so many more.
Yeah.
yeah, but I think that would require a lot of time if you had your town meeting where it was being
You know,
videoed.
I love town meeting because
Yeah.
I'm really well versed in what's going on. I've been involved in it for years, but town meeting is not a very accessible mechanism of government because you look at, I mean, really the largest group of inaccessibility you have is parents of young children, right? How are you supposed to dedicate a Tuesday night, which, I mean, some of our town meetings have gone for till 10, 11 o'clock at night because you're trying to avoid having to go into Wednesday.
Yeah.
So you're gonna spend from, 6:30 until 11 on a Tuesday night and you got kids at home? Like, how are both voters, and if you have a two-parent household, how are your both parents gonna vote?
And why
It's not
aren't we doing it
accessible.
on a Saturday?
We tried it on a Saturday, but it was during the pandemic.
Yes.
And so that wasn't necessarily the best case of whether it would work or not. We had another one where we tried to do it on a Saturday and a very prominent person's funeral happened on that day. And so that was another one where we experimented with it. But honestly, if you're a two-parent household or one-parent household with young children, you're probably busy on Saturday. You're at soccer and
But you
you're
could
at-
have activities for children. But the thing that makes town meeting great for me is I actually see people that live in the town and I get engaged in, conversation.
But I think another way that it's inaccessible is what Carrie just said, that some people are intimidated. Like I don't have any problem at all telling a police officer I disagree with him on a topic, right? But I'm pretty bold, and a lot of people, I have had people complain because uniformed officers were at town meeting, right? Because it's intimidating to some people. Now,
Only because they stand at the back.
they look intimidating. They're police officers with the uniforms on. So, and some part of the reason they're there is to keep order, But there's some people who just worry that they won't be as articulate as somebody else. People worry that they're going to get, because the nature of town meeting is I can talk and then I think the moderator does a fabulous job of not letting people just directly argue.
Right.
But somebody can attack what you just said, and that's pretty intimidating. So on the one hand, it's very freeing and open because anybody can stand up,
Right.
but not everybody can stand up.
Yeah.
Very
And-
few, actually.
Yeah, and the votes are not anonymous in most cases at town meeting. Now, most of them, like, should we pay prior year's bills or move stuff around? That's pretty unanimous. There's many of those that I talked about today are not controversial, right? But the controversial ones, I mean, you have to raise your hand, and your neighbor knows how you voted. And again, I'm okay with that. I take positions. I'm a public person, but not everybody's okay with that.
There's something about a democracy that is really important in the fact that you're willing to come together with your neighbors and discuss and have different opinions and go to the grocery store the next day and still smile at each other. That's how you build a community. We don't have the prep work for that because when you go and there's 300 people, I do not know probably more than 10 of them. And so I might be concerned about the other.
And I don't
200.
think, as much as anybody can talk, I don't think it really favors good discussion, right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
Because the whole business to keep the meeting moving along and you don't get two people bickering with each other, it makes it very awkward to ask questions.
Yeah.
And so I say, please study the warrant and ask your questions beforehand because it is really hard to get specific information. And honestly, as a person who answers questions at town meeting, a lot of people are not asking a question, they're just trying to attack you. I prefer to say, I'm in favor of this article and this is why, or I'm against this article and this is why. Or can you please answer what is this, right? Where it's a legitimate question, but not everybody kind of plays by those rules either.
Yeah, well, we have representative government for all of those reasons. We elect somebody to do that for us because they have the skills or they want to develop the skills or whatever the reasons are, but but to have to really stand up for your own point, or to sit there quietly saying, I don't really understand this, is a acknowledgement of your awareness of what's going on in your own town.
The town moderator has a really good video that he's done about like how to participate in town meetings. So I would really encourage people to check out the town moderator's page.
And it's on YouTube, it's
on-
available.
yeah, and
The
it could-
students at the middle school also produced
That
a
was
program.
great.
Yeah, and I think seeing the young people get involved like that, because I always thought growing up in a town with town meeting must be a fantastic experience. You assume that's everywhere, and it's not. It's not in Dartmouth. You know, that's
Dartmouth has town meeting, they have a representative. town
representative, yeah, and that's not the same. You say you elect somebody to stand in for you. We actually, like you said, do it ourselves. We make these decisions ourselves. Don't come, you lose the fun, but this is good. Yeah.
So have you?
Why don't
what
you
do-
pause, Valerie, why don't you pause this for a minute?
Why don't we give it up? We don't have the results yet, that's the question.
Yeah, we went down specifically to the town clerk's office. The vote's much larger than anticipated, much larger we think than it was last year. Last year had a vote of 2,300, so we're gonna be hanging out and we're gonna be waiting. And the town clerk promised not to have all of the write-ins completed tonight, but at least to have the decisions made that can be made. So hang in there with us or check with us tomorrow and you will get the results hot off the town clerk's.
I've had a number of people, I'm looking, it occurred to me, Carrie, we could have done this one with a Facebook
We could.
Live.
This room is ready.
This one we could have done with a Facebook Live and get comments and questions online, because I just went on, people are commenting about we went dark on them, so sorry everybody for going dark on you.
Yeah.
We were trying to figure out what was going on.
We thought maybe you needed a little rest or time, like, you weren't offering advertisements, you could have gone to the refrigerator, but we needed a little break, and now we're back ready and waiting, and we hope you will stay to hear the big results, and we hope to hear them soon. We have not much more to report on the town meeting.
So so I'm looking at Facebook, so this is kind of dangerous. But thanks to you who are complaining that we were off, because that means you're watching.
Yes.
So that's great.
Yep.
And I don't mean complaining in a bad way, I meant noting that we were not off. Somebody asked about the zoning changes for Route 6 based on water and sewer, and isn't it premature because we don't know the ballot? And we touched on this a little bit, but the zoning changes are completely independent of the water sewer vote. Now, practically speaking, you're not going to get a lot of that development that comes up if there's no water and sewer. So what would happen is the area would be zoned for that, but you might not have anybody taking advantage of that zoning. Kind of like there is an adult entertainment district zoned up there in that area, but we don't, and there's zoning that allows adult entertainment in a section up there. But nobody's taken advantage of that zoning yet. So the zoning articles are absolutely standalone. But practically, you won't see much of a change unless there's water sewer there. I was trying to see if there's anybody else like actual questions on here. I'm gonna look. Why don't you? What do you want to talk about?
Are you getting questions you want to share? We were talking earlier about how we could weave together the possibility of people being able to send their questions in, and I think we got a little clue on how that might be possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's too late for tonight, but
Yeah.
I think for next year, when
Absolutely.
you're doing this.
And if there's anybody interested in participating, we really would love to hear from you so that next year we have a crew of people who can be working with us to make sure the word is out, but
Yes.
also update people and provide information, people maybe that can be responsive to questions. And so I think that we've gotten some great insights. There's a lot to know in running a small village.
There is.
And it needs everybody to participate in the most positive ways. But we want to thank Valerie for staying with us, keeping her eye on the prize, which is our little talking panel here. And if you do have any questions, Send them to Shauna.
Yeah, you can messenger me.
Message
Yeah.
me.
Message me or Carrie on
Yeah.
Facebook. You can send messenger message and we'll.
Or even in our group.
Yeah, we should have thought of that earlier. We could have
Yeah,
had
we
an
should have.
ongoing
Yeah.
chat.
I
So
didn't talk about all the warrant articles. We could go about that, but I thought one of the things I thought would be interesting to talk about was the committees that we have in town and that people might want to think about participating in.
before you do that, tell me why you think there were so many vacancies on the ballot this year. I don't think I've ever seen a ballot with so many blanks that needed candidates.
Well, to me, it's a little disappointing. We only had one contested race, right? So we only had one race that was really contested.
Yeah.
Now, when you're the incumbent running, you kind of like it that way. But, the contested races are usually better for more dialogue. I think one of the reasons you saw a lot of blanks is we had a pretty much mass resignation from the housing authority, and
Yeah.
so we have a lot of openings on the housing authority I think that's one of the reasons you saw a lot of it. Fish
If
commissioner, we always have
people-
commissioner of trust funds. That's not that unusual.
People listening would like some idea of what you are looking for, what the town needs to be on the housing committee. I heard the criticisms, or I read, I think, the criticisms that people had, which had to do with space being available statewide for housing, and they really were concerned about that. But to appoint people to the housing committee, what are you looking for?
So it's important to know there's a couple of there's an affordable housing committee,
Yes.
which is a committee that's tasked with looking for opportunities for affordable housing. The housing authority is the body that manages the Greenwood apartment complex.
Okay.
So, or is it Greenwood Terrace?
I
Yeah,
think.
Greenwood Terrace apartment complex. So the housing authority is tasked with doing that. They have a governor appointee, and then they have a resident, and then they have some community members. And so I think one of the things, I know Ms. Booya, when she resigned, she kind of really talked about it's not going to West Porters. Like when you build a housing authority in your community, you want it to be used for your citizens who are maybe aging out of their places and have a place to go. And the way that the whole state system works is you don't necessarily get Westport people in there.
The funding comes from the state,
The
though.
funding comes from the state, and
Yeah.
so they have a lot of control over it. So I think there was a lot of frustration there.
Yeah.
I think there's also some, I wasn't that close to
So
that.
my question is, what would encourage people to apply for those positions?
If you have, I would say people that have maybe property management expertise, people who manage apartment complexes, people who are just really interested in like low income housing and helping people, and like I don't know, I haven't worked so closely with that board that I know the skill set they need, but one of the things so my professional background, I'm a business systems analyst, so I do requirements for software development projects. Now I have managerial responsibilities and things like that now, but my background and training was designing software systems and requirements for software systems. And you think, well, the town isn't really implementing software. This is why I really like the permitting software. But you have to look at the skills and the talents and the things that you have that can port over to another group. Right? So if you have any kind of grant writing experience, right? We would love to, I know Carrie is trying to recruit grant writers. Like anybody that has grant writing experience, wants to know how to run grants, we need that skill, right? We need people who have management skill. We need people who have, like I think on housing, you need people that have any kind of like building maintenance or real estate development, those kind of skills that kind of port over, right, and become really valuable. A lot of these committees need people with marketing skills to put together. This might be one of the things, improve our communication if we had better marketing talent, because.
Well, if you're up listening to us tonight, you are interested in Westport, I'm sure. So you might want to think about that, because housing is a really critical factor in the community.
I think the housing authority is really important, but probably one of those thankless tasks. A lot of the volunteer work we have is kind of thankless. Like, I think the recreation commission, the folks that are on the recreation commission are going to be able to like put the shovel in the ground and cut the ribbon on a playground, and that is so cool. And that's not even the only thing they do, but like that is a really example. That's a cool committee for. So they're gonna get to see that. The bike walking path committee, they're gonna, you know, they're slogging along trying to get these projects, and it's like so many, like, I want to say thankless because there are meetings and you have to
Takes
get
a
grants
long
and trying to,
time,
like,
right.
it's so long slog, but eventually there will be a bike path and they'll get to ride on it, and that's really cool. I think a housing authority is hard. Like, you're helping people, but it's not that tangible.
Well,
how you're
it
helping
could be
people.
if people haven't found a place.
Well, in the affordable housing, you've got that Habitat for Humanity home that the affordable housing
Right.
brought in. I think that's a really cool one. You're bringing affordable housing into the community
Absolutely.
and got people together. So that's
And it's a big issue in our state, so, but what about some of these other races that were not, nobody
So-
would decide to run? Why do you think that's so?
it's so it's hard to get people to run for office. So there's some studies that show that most people who run for office have to be asked by somebody to run for office. Most positions, you don't just have someone come in and say, I'm going to be this, right? Somebody needs to ask them and recruit them. So I think a big part of it is that we have, actually one of the things you see on Facebook is like people talk about, you know, cronies and special interests and things like that. But part of what they're doing is recruiting candidates. You know, they're finding people. Somebody recruited me. I would say probably almost every elected official you have, somebody said, hey, you should run for this. So I think really we need to kind of show people how their talents can help, right? How, like, being an assessor. I think assessor was one of the open slots because I think we had a resignation on the assessor. So we have an opening in the assessor's office, which I don't remember if it's on the ballot or not.
Yeah,
But
no, I don't think it was.
But assessor, like, what does an assessor do? Assessor actually is a lot of work. An assessor is doing a lot of work for not that much pay. And a lot of these committees are doing a lot of work with no pay at all. So you're not doing it for money. You're not gonna get rich in town government.
But you do get a lot if you get involved in your town.
I have been I met you because we were working on something together,
Right.
and like I have met so many really cool people just because like you worked on a committee with them, or they asked a question in a meeting, or they asked to talk
Right.
to you. Somebody just texted me, the landing commission is it was open, and so somebody reminded me the landing commission has an opening for write-in. I know there was one person that was trying to get written in, but to get on somebody, you have to understand that someone might want you in that position, or you have to just be really like self-confident. That I was not self-confident. I am maybe now, but I wasn't then.
Bring skills that you got
Bring
involved.
some skills that you think are involved.
over the years.
Somebody needs to probably ask you, hey, think about running. There's some studies that show that women have to be asked 7 times.
Wow.
That's so.
Not the
please,
women at this table.
I bet somebody had to ask me 7 times. I don't have any problem believing that. And there's studies that show men have to be asked once to run, and women have to be asked 7 times. And
Wow.
it's, you know, well, I don't want to try to go into the demographics of that, but I think people don't know what these committees do. Like, what is land commission?
That's, I think, the biggest, you don't know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
And once you join, you begin to see that it's the group that gives some shape to what it has to be. So there's a good chemistry amongst the people. But they all have goals. I'm the chair of the Council on Aging. We have real important goals. We have a staff to support. We have lots of programs. It's a very needed service in the town. The same with cable. Nobody knows it's here, but everybody knows it's here.
Right.
It's kind of a mysterious force.
The library trustees, I think, is another one where you usually
Absolutely.
get some good candidates, but some of them, like commissioner of trust funds, we don't seem to ever have one. It seems to be fine, So they meet with the treasurer
What
a
does
couple
the
times a
commissioner
year.
of trust funds do? Is that a finance person?
I think it's somebody who would have financial experience that's working with the treasurer, but the treasurer is probably doing the bulk of the work. The landing commission, there was a few years ago we looked and said, there's only like 2 towns in Massachusetts that have a landing commission anymore. But our landing commission takes care of the town landings. We have some town landings. They did some really important work when we had people encroaching on the town landings. So they really advocated to protect the town property. They're doing some improvements at some of the landings, so that one's pretty good. I'm trying to think of the other elected officials that, so the housing authority was the big one that somebody
Yeah.
remind me, but I think people also, the other thing I think with a lot of maybe more the volunteer committees is that people think, oh, they're already full, oh, they already have that, but like you are on the cable advisory committee and the council on aging. Are you on any others at the moment?
No, that's
the culture, the
I was.
cultural council. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people who are serving in multiple committees who probably would welcome the chance to kind of step back and say, if you had somebody like who's really interested in a topic, like if you see a vacancy for something, ask about it, because we know we need people there. But even if you don't see a vacancy, but you think, oh, I'd really like to be on this, say something. You might not immediately
We should
get
have
it.
a job fair. We should have a job fair sometime where all the vacancies on committees can be promoted. As you come, there'll be free coffee and donuts, and you get to talk to
Yeah,
the
I mean,
existing committees.
Because we really do rely on a lot of, like, if people who have particular financial experience, like we have an
Yeah.
audit committee. The audit committee, I was really, really proud. That was one of the pieces of work that I am most proud of, is the work that we did around changing the treasurer collector position, putting
Yeah.
an audit committee in place.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of the work that I did to make that happen, because the audit committee makes sure we're not going to ignore audits in the future. And that's another one that people think, well, that's silly, you know, why do you need, but you need one because we didn't have it, and things went awry. Beach committee does a lot of work. Like you guys don't, I think most people don't understand that an unpaid volunteer is opening and closing those gates at Cherry and Webb every single day. Unpaid volunteer every morning. And so when people complain that it was open at, 8:15 instead of 8 or whatever, like, please step up and volunteer to open the gates. Go talk to the beach committee about the mornings that you're willing to do that. I think some have a real time commitment, like Board of Appeals. That's a big time commitment. Like, I would say people who have kind of legal expertise or construction expertise are probably really helpful in the Zoning Board of Appeals. Capital Improvement Plan, that's another one. I think people with financial experience would be helpful, but you don't have to be. You can learn a lot by serving on committees.
Yes.
Like one of the things that's really interesting about being on the select board is that we are often delegates to a lot of committees. So I've served on a lot of committees.
And that's important, I think.
Yeah, well, I served on committees because I'm supposed to be liaising back to the select board, but you learn a lot on committee. I didn't know anything about fiber broadband, but now I know quite a bit about fiber broadband. The Climate Resilience Committee I'm on, that one I joined just because we have really talented people on that committee, and I wanted to learn more about climate resilience and what should municipalities do and what are the things we should be thinking of. So some of it can just be
And that
interested.
committee's looking for volunteers.
Climate resiliency has
Yeah, they
I
have
feel
a
like
big
we have a
poster.
very large committee, but we really welcome all kinds of, because we have so many different perspectives. We have a health and a water and an infrastructure and agriculture. So how is climate affecting agriculture, and should we be doing anything about it? Health, you have more mosquito-borne illnesses happening, and more asthma and things like that in children. So what should you be doing? I don't really think about climate and health, like, okay, it's a thing. But when we start hearing people who are actually really knowledgeable about it,
It seems
learn a lot.
there's so many people that start to get involved because there's going to be a vote that's going to increase taxes or whatever. And maybe this whole thing of promoting where people can get more involved on these committees.
Absolutely.
If not a job fair, maybe just a party to,
Well, people are engaged, right? People are engaged right now because this election we had tonight, and they're going to be engaged through town meeting because same controversial topics are going to carry
Yes.
on to May 7, right? So the people that are engaged now, I would really challenge for those of you who are watching, if you're engaged now, stay engaged and try to expand your reach to other topics, right? Because it's really good to focus on a topic, but please don't go away when that topic is decided, because we have zoning articles on every warrant, right? So don't go away, like, but it does take, I got involved, the first town meeting I went to is because I wanted my street to be accepted. And I had never even heard of town meeting, but I wanted my street to be accepted because I had to go half a mile to the bus stop, and they wouldn't go down the street to the half a mile because it wasn't a town street. So we petitioned to get our street accepted, and that was kind of my intro into town government. And I think that's what it takes for a lot of people. People are getting
It has to be
views on
real, there has to be, and oftentimes
Yeah.
it's something you disagree with, and that makes it hard.
Yes.
You really want to be in something that's positive. Your first entry was a very positive thing,
And they
so,
have to understand that they can make a change.
yeah.
It's not hopeless.
Or like I was talking about, like when you're at town meeting, you're one of 300. If you're on the finance committee, you're one of 9. Like you have, the finance committee has a lot. You saw that with the big, they came out with against the water sewer project. There was 6-3 vote, and they came out against it at what seemed like the 11th hour to a lot of people. But their decisions are weighty, right? It's a weighty decision, and you're only one of 9 people on that one. You have a lot more influence than you might think that you have. Long-term planning town building committee, that's one that I'm really excited to hear the results of that one, but what do we do with our buildings?
Yeah.
What do we do with the old high school?
And you will get information if you're part of committees. Because
Yeah.
you hear what's going on. Because people aren't going to make reports halfway through, but they're going to, somehow, these committees do have to submit minutes and agendas. You can, keep up with a little bit of the changes. So that's good.
I would say one of the ones that's always under is the personnel board. So you'll see we didn't talk about this, but there's at least one personnel board article on the warrant. So the personnel board is like the human resources for non-union positions. So most employees that we could name are in union or unionized employees, there are the positions that aren't in the union, so aren't under that labor contract. Those are the ones that are covered by the personnel bylaws, and so we have to have a committee that's trying to look at the personnel bylaws, and that one can also be controversial. Like we had one maybe a year ago where one of the committees made a really good argument about why their recording secretary should be making more money, because they had this extra duties and things like that and they made a pretty good case for why their recording secretary needed more money. But then other people with other similar jobs, I would do the same thing as them. They kind of said, hey, wait, I'm doing that same job and you didn't give me more money, right? And somebody needs to kind of figure that out. Somebody needs to say, are we paying this correctly? Are these jobs really equivalent? Are we paying market rate or not? And are we intentional about how we're paying it? Those kinds of things. So human resources happens in a municipality.
Absolutely.
And the contracts, we try to negotiate 3-year contracts. I think all of our units are up right now. So we're in negotiations with all of our bargaining units right now. But they'll be 3 years, hopefully, if we get the bargaining units to agree to 3 years.
Selectmen have a very big job.
The select board job is big and not very big, because the select board doesn't really have that many places of authority. We have a lot of influence, but not authority. So we sign contracts. So we also get sued. If the town is getting sued, that's the select board. Or the zoning board of appeals. The zoning board of appeals probably gets sued more than we do. So we sign contracts, so the labor negotiations, that kind of the town administrator contracts, the health director, like the employee agreements, things like that, we sign those. We sign contracts, so if project, we're buying an ambulance or something, we have to sign the contract. So we're the contracting body. But we don't have a lot of authority beyond that. Not really. It's mostly.
Where is the authority? The staff that you hire as
So-
professionals?
So
Because they're here every day.
So most of the departments are kind of very independent. So the
Yeah.
police department, right? The police department is very independent, and the fire department very independent. School department also independent, right? So those are some very large departments that are pretty independent. The town administrator is responsible for most of the town departments, right? So the town administrator is the human resources and the manager and
Right.
director. He has way too many people reporting to him in a company that would be. I think he has 18 direct reports with very different functions. So that's not great, but
That's what it is.
it's where you have a shoestring budget, that's
Yeah.
what you have. So the select, like I said, the select board has a lot of influence because we can set, when we talk about stuff in meetings, it becomes visible. Even if people aren't watching the meetings themselves, that's what's getting reported on and that's what
Right.
people are talking about. But really not, because we can't spend any money the town meeting hasn't appropriated. So it's not like people say, oh, we're writing a check. We
You're
can't
like
write a single check
over-
the town meeting hasn't appropriated.
They're like overseers.
It's more like oversight. Like we
Yeah.
we do take the first pass at the budget. So the select board is the first pass at the budget. The town administrator starts in like October putting together the budget, and we're the ones that propose that to the finance committee. The finance committee then changes it, right? So we're responsible for presenting a budget to the FinCom, but we're not presenting it to the town. We appoint people to a lot of committees. So I think the committee appointments is one of the big things that we do because we would have influence over who, like we recently appointed registrar of voters, and there was Democrats had some candidates, Republicans had some candidates we picked, right? So that was an appointment authority. So but appointments and contracts are really the big responsibilities we have. We can't like manufacture money. We can't sell things. We can't buy things.
I thought they really were making all the world turn and, you know.
And everybody thinks that, yeah.
Yeah. And here you just get in here and make sure it keeps moving,
Like Carrie
right?
gives me like she asks me so many questions that are like sometimes I'm like, oh please, not an email from Carrie.
I'm so sorry.
But now the next morning, then I look and I go,
How did
okay,
you get
she had a
involved
good
in
question.
your Facebook adventures? Because, you know, I just picked up on that recently, but you really were trying to keep peace in the family, and I thought that
I
was,
didn't like the other one, so I created two. One that was just for politics, local politics, and one that was for the town. I do a lot of like advertising.
But
venues
before
and
that,
whatnot.
before you had that Facebook site though, you were asking a lot of questions from a lot of different meetings, right? So what got you like engaged so that you were asking the questions?
I grew up, my grandfather was a selectman, so I grew up in that kind of, so when I got here and right into a small town again, it was intriguing for me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what did it.
Val, Steve said we went off the air.
Oh, too long.
Oh, we went too long. Irene was right. So we're not on the air anymore, and we just were very thoughtful of what we just said.
It
So
might be on, probably on YouTube. It probably still
are we
on
getting
YouTube.
any
Oh,
more
okay.
questions?
So it's recording on YouTube.
so we think it might be on YouTube. So I'm sorry I interrupted you, Carrie.
No, we're,
So your grandfather was a
He
selectman.
was for a number of years, yeah, for
Yeah.
Haven, when I was growing up. So I kind of grew up into that. I played in the town hall as a little kid. I had free roam, so it always intrigued me. He would take me to inspect roads and just, do grandfather, granddaughter stuff. And
what's
The
wonderful.
YouTube people are confirming that we are on YouTube.
okay.
Hey,
Yeah.
YouTube people. I don't get so many I feel like very popular today because I'm getting so many texts.
Are you getting questions from people?
I'm not getting any questions.
Okay.
No.
It's great
Well,
this year, isn't it?
I think
There's so many
people-
more engaged, it
Yeah.
seems.
Yeah, it's like even the ones that I'm arguing with are still engaged, right?
Yeah. There needs to be a way that they can get a conversation, not just answers.
Yes.
Because the answer always has opposite sides or something. I
Yes.
never see what I see or what I read is people that have their opinions that they keep expressing over and over and over. I don't like this. I do not like this. I like this not. And then people ask questions, but they don't seem to want to dig any deeper.
Right.
It doesn't seem to be a media, a way of gathering news that expands your thinking as much as it just sort of throws an idea out. But I think what we're doing tonight, if we could connect it with Messenger,
Yes.
if we could allow
Yes.
people to feed questions back, because that's what you do in
We got to start with
Zoom
the
meetings.
select board meeting because you guys are wired for it.
Yeah, really the challenge when I was chair of the select board in 2020 when we went remote, and one of the things that helped was that I had already been doing remote meetings at work, and so I had already kind of been set up for it with, like, to do a really good remote meeting, you have to have at least 2 monitors, and you have to have some equipment and stuff like that. So, and then we had Lucy Tabbett at the time, who was also really keen on making sure it worked and it could work. So. But it takes a certain amount of technical training and
Yes.
knowledge to really make those meetings go smoothly and get all the equipment up and running and to monitor. Like, again, I do this at work all the time where I'd be talking and having a conversation and I'm still nuts
Yes.
on the side, right? But it's a skill. Like, it's a skill. There's many skills I do not have, but that is one skill that I have to do that. But it's hard during a meeting. And then I think we had some the partial remote. I actually have a problem with partial remote, partially in person and partially remote. I think that's very difficult to pull off, but not impossible.
No.
And if we have the right kind of technology, I think we got a grant. I think we got a grant to do some upgrades to this room to make it more friendly for that.
Well, it's on our list.
Yes.
So by this time next year, when all these people have joined committees and become knowledgeable
Yes.
and asked questions and gone to town meeting and put their hand up and found an easy way to participate, we will have a groundswell of interest. So if you're
gonna be great.
interested and you do all that homework that I just suggested, this time next year, get yourself down. We are amazed that the 3 of us are holding up at 10:30 at night.
I do want to
waiting.
mention, I don't think we mentioned, so the town clerks, if you want to go to bed,
They don't. There's nothing else on
Yeah,
TV.
yeah. Thank you.
it's
If
past
anyone
my
wants
bedtime,
to go to
actually.
bed.
But the town clerk will post the results on the Westport Mass
Right.
page, on the town clerk page. The town clerk will tonight, before she goes to bed, will post the results. So those will be there. So tonight, whatever time that happens.
And I'll share them to social media.
So, right, yeah, as soon as they're available, I think people will share them. And there will be the preliminary with no write-in or anything. We were hoping that we could just come talk for another half hour or so and they'd be done down there,
But I think we're getting to the
Heard that.
place that you probably are not so interested in listening. At least that's my guess. You've listened. I hope you've really had a chance to dig into town meeting with Sean. I thank you so much
Yes.
for doing that. Thank you for joining us, Carrie.
yes, yes,
I
yes.
think the ideas about how to expand the way we can connect and how we can encourage the town to talk to each other. Because remember, we is the beginning of Westport.
Oh, that's
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Election night countdown will be up on the Westport website and it will be on the cable channel. Any place you look, you'll probably see it tomorrow and we'll have a few happy people.
And we're
out
hoping
there.
that if you're watching this in rerun tomorrow, Val's going to try to put the tack on here the results.
Yeah, no, we'll have it attached as text.
And I'll be
So-
up if anybody wants to ask me questions, and I'll post as soon as it comes up.
Thank you very much and
Thank
good
you.
night.